Okay, we are live. Okay, thank you folks for checking out this quick video. We've decided to get this video recorded tonight purely for a Q&A session with the awesome Prem Johal, who's on the call with us tonight. Now, before I bring Prem in, the reason we're doing this, like I said, we're getting a lot of the same questions time and time again about Privileged Car Club, about this unique concept of crowdfunding cars. Okay, so we're doing this replay or this recording simply to give everybody a tool, a resource that they can share with folks that are asking these questions. So without further ado, I want to bring on Prem Johal. Now, Prem, he's an ex-banker. Okay, he works for the very well-known banking giant Merrill Lynch back in the day in the City of London. He is a Series 7 qualified, which I'm assured the US folks out there will understand what that means. So, and he has an educational background as an economist. So Prem knows numbers. He understands this concept. To be honest, when I first saw, I mean, I've known Prem for quite a while online, and when I saw that he had joined with PCC, that kind of gave me a lot of confidence, because I know Prem isn't the type of guy to jump into just any old thing. Okay, so when I saw Prem get involved, I was very happy to follow him in. So Prem, I'd like to welcome you on, buddy. How you doing?
Thank you very much. That was a very generous introduction. Hello, everybody. Hope you're well. Thanks for your time. I'll just get straight into a few basics. I'm no longer Series 7 qualified because I no longer work in the banks. I have worked with Merrill Lynch, then Credit Suisse, which you guys in the US will know as CSFB, Credit Suisse First Boston. I worked in the London branch, and thereafter back into Merrill Lynch, which got swallowed over by Bank of America and became Bank of America Merrill Lynch. They then spun us off. The farmers couldn't deal with the castle and its silver, so they spun our wealth management unit off to another Swiss bank called Julius Baer. That was my final proper job. And then I did a small stint at another British bank focused in Asia called Standard Chartered. You would have heard of all of these banks, I'm sure. I no longer work in the banks. I've been home-based for the last 3 years. My core business deals with something completely different. It's wealth-related. It deals with precious metals and cryptocurrency mining as producing it rather than trading it. So this is a little bit about me. I'm happy to now go straight into the questions and the objections because, as John mentioned, these are repeats. Yeah. So when for the first time I came across this concept, clearly I had exactly the same questions. You cannot afford to put your foot into something that's going to suck you in and, destroy you. You have a reputation, you have a circle of trusted friends and network colleagues, and you certainly cannot risk anything. But if it is something new, I was quite intrigued. I have a successful business already. I'm on top of my game in my own primary business. So I had no need for this. But when it was presented to me, I insisted on speaking to the CEO. I spent 2 hours with Mr. Andy Wall, the visionary CEO. And from him, I found out a number of things which I think are relevant before we go into the questions. First and foremost, the vision he had is 25 years old because he used to be a church preacher. Now, I'm not a religious person, but I know one thing, that the vast majority of churches are actually made up of normal people. The people in the pews, in the benches, are normal people. And he said, Prem, the biggest argument and disagreement with each other all the time was finance related. And the second biggest burden always was a car. And I as a pastor, I had to deal with the fallout of different families suffering financial hardship. So he had this vision 25 years ago, but he neglected it. But he mentioned it to somebody, and those people are friends of his, and they kept nagging him over 25 years to say, when are you doing the cars? When are you doing the cars? When are you doing the cars? So last year sometime, he decided, this is the time. If I'm not doing it now, I can't do it any other time. And let's get going with this. So he handed in his resignation, and he had to take a 6-month gardening leave from his previous employment. And during that time, he went through the numbers, he went through the legalities, he ran it past several accountants, first on friendly basis, then on professional level when it got serious. They played the model out repeatedly over and over, and they tried to do various different things with it to stress test it, and eventually it launched. Now, one little thing everybody needs to understand is this, and this is for everybody that comes up with any accusation without understanding the model first. You can either pose a question with the view of trying to learn something, or you make up your mind and just call it a Ponzi or whatever, because that's what it is. So that is not a learning attitude. So I adopted a learning attitude, and I insisted on talking to him. I did not care about how the business actually is going to work. What I was really interested in is, what do you know about law and compliance? And the two are different. Legality and the compliance of the business model are two very separate aspects. That is where I literally grilled him. I hammered him. And he gave me all the satisfactory answers. He was dealing with a Citibank. You know, Citibank NA is one of the largest top 4 banks in the US. He was working with a Citibank related entity called Citi Solutions here in the United Kingdom. He was the worldwide top performer. And so therefore he knows, and he was therefore automatically regulated. He had to take exams and everything else. So he's on a level with me, right? So we're talking about, okay, how do authorities act? How do they react? How do we as a business make sure that we are satisfying and ticking all the boxes so that we can do the business unhindered? Because the last thing you want is a disruption in your business model because of some technicality that somehow, somewhere was overlooked. We've dealt with all of that. And when we get into the deeper questions, we'll answer or try to answer as much as possible. So I just thought I'll give you this little background. I'm no longer regulated. I can't give financial advice, although, I know my way around securities law, both in the US. I know how to trade munis still. I still remember them, right? So not just munis, futures, commodities, you name it. I've done it as a profession, being a wealth manager. So you can feel comfortable in reaching out. If you have any specifics, I will try and help you, the individual, do something like this. Post a hangout, and let's explore the questions and the answers.
Brilliant.
So back to you, John.
Cheers for that, Prem. Thanks for the introduction. I think it's important, folks, that we realise that this is a brand new concept, and obviously myself and the rest of the panelists tonight, we've been sharing this with a lot of people. And like Prem says, some people understand it, and it's a bit like me. When I was first showing it, I thought initially, man, that sounds way too good to be true, right? But I didn't allow that first thought to rule my final decision. I dug in. I wanted to know how it's going to work. And I took probably a couple of weeks to actually consume the information, okay? So bear that thought in mind. Don't just necessarily make a snap decision, because this is such an awesome concept that it needs your time. It needs your time to understand it. So without further ado, let's get into the nitty gritty. Let's get these questions answered. So I'm going to ask the first question. We're going to work between myself and Morel and ask these questions. We've only actually got 4 that we really want to cover as far as I can see. If anyone has any on the panel, then feel free to put them in the chat and we can cover them at the end if we need to. So the first one that I've got here, obviously comprehensive insurance is given to all vehicles, okay? However, I do know that there are some differences between how we work with our comprehensive insurance here in the UK and how the guys out in the US work with comprehensive insurance. So can you just clarify that for us, Prem? Are personal liabilities, injuries, and such part of the insurance package for the US folks?
When you qualify for a budget. You're not qualifying for any specific car. You're qualifying for a budget. Provided your annual expenditure can be estimated to be X amount, you take the budget, subtract the X amount from it, and what's left is the value of the car you're able to buy. In fact, we've had this argument from US people, especially, saying that, you don't get a discount if you pay cash because the dealers make money on the interest payments and they make money on the car finance deal itself. Well, we are not obliged to go to the sales force. We go to the distributorship, which is very, very different. When you go to the distributorship, there is a chance that the car that you see as a list price, as a ticket price, brand new in a showroom, will be available for a slight discount anyway. But that amount is still the leftover lion's share after you've taken into account what are your costs. Now, we are aware that in many states in the US, you have something called tags, and the tags are assigned to the individual. So if you're the owner of the car, you are the one responsible for paying your tags. So you've got tags and taxes and different levels of insurance. As a club, as the assets belong to the club, the priority of getting the best and the highest level of insurance cover necessary is in our interest more than the driver's interest. So we have something similar, like our Uber drivers here in the United Kingdom. They'll have basic comprehensive insurance that takes care of third-party actions such as fire, theft, etc., or damage or accidental damage or whatever. But then there is an additional layer of insurance, which is public liability insurance. If you're carrying somebody else in your private space and something happens to them, who's responsible? So we understand all these things. We are a baby, right? When we get rolling in the US, there will have to be a local paid member of staff dedicated in taking care of this. When you have 1 or 2 or 3 cars to hand over, you can deal with it remotely from the United Kingdom. But when you have 10, 20, 30 cars rolling out on the streets, then you're going to need a local presence, and that will come. But before we go down that route, I was mentioning this earlier to John before we got this call started, that it started with a couple of $100 in the living room of the CEO, where that couple that knew about the vision for 25 years, they put a couple of $100 down and said, hey, we are your first members, get going, right? Now, as soon as you get the first members' money in, do you then spend $250,000 on legal fees to get everything perfect? First of all, no business can start like that. No business can survive like that. So as a club, we have had an organic growth in the last 6 to 7 months in excess of 45,000%. So you're looking at a couple of $100 becoming more than 100 and something $1,000 worth of vehicles, plus cash flow set aside to pay for the next series of cars, and a few are coming. There'll be a few more people qualifying very soon. So the rate of growth is 45,000%. So an accountant and a banker can see this is a cash accumulating asset building model, and it's debt free. That is where you focus if you're really truly business minded. Now, having said that, within your budget, whatever the budget you qualify for, $24,000 or $36,000, all the necessary insurance that must be in place for you to legally be able to drive without having any unforeseen consequences, that will have to be squeezed into the same budget. So all it really does is, in some states, your insurance will be cheap and relatively less. In some other states, it'll be much higher. So that just means your actual car portion of the budget will have to remain flexible. And within that, go find whatever car of your choice, your make, your model that you can squeeze into that budget. And that's a done deal. Going forward, in this case, the first 3 cars that are being handed over on Sunday, the 1st of April, the first 3 cars were specific requests on part of the first 3 members. That includes me. I'm the fastest to qualify, but the 3rd to qualify overall. And we knew what we wanted specifically, but the way the company is going to work going forward is you put in 2 suggestions of yours. This is not set in stone, by the way. It will happen, and we're willing to take member suggestions. We are willing to grow with you. We are nothing without the members, by the way. Yeah. So this is not a top-down authority breathing down on you to dictate how to do things, but rather we take suggestions in. So 2 will be your choices, and then we'll offer you a 3rd wild card. What if we have dealership connections or national distributorship connections, and we can get something way better than you even imagined to squeeze into your budget? On top of that, you add insurance, and on top of that, you add your other third-party liability insurances and various other things. So the idea is very, very simple. The concept is very, very simple. You qualify for a budget, not a car. And within the budget, we will make sure that you are covered in every possible way, because we cannot, the last thing we can afford as a club is to have all these members over here are the net contributors to that car. They are the co-owners of that car. So how can we allow their and our collective ownership of that car to be at risk by just not having the right insurance? That's not possible. Number one. Now, final, to close this insurance discussion, we are in negotiation with one of the largest insurance groups on the planet. In fact, in terms of brand name, they are classy, right? They're not just large like General Motors. They are classy, right? And this particular company, they want to give us a group-wide insurance that is going to be worldwide and cover us automatically in 197 countries. But we can't discuss that yet because we need to have a signed agreement with them. And they're telling us, well, you've done 3 cars, well done, but we need to see a few more numbers for us to actually write the clauses, do the wording, and cover you fully and completely in all the countries that matter. And some very funky countries that you would not normally set foot in, being an American or a British person, they even cover those countries. But that doesn't mean we're going to go there. All it means is that we have global coverage from one point of contact. And we'll be picking up the same insurance for cents in the dollar, right? So when you pay insurance, you're paying multiple levels of commissions. I hope you realize that is truly a pyramid. The insurance sector itself is a pyramid. And the reinsurer, then you've got a separate underwriter to separate the liability aspect. And then you've got the big brand label, and that big brand label will have a little specialized label for pet insurance or something like that. And they will then have an online brand presence or an insurance salesman. All of them have levels of commissions built in. So just to be very clear, we can pick up the insurance deal, which you're not paying for. It is being paid for from the pot of money in your what you qualified for. So that simply means if we can bring down the cost of insurance for everybody and have a global coverage, you get to improve the quality of the car because your budget is suddenly expanded within your qualifying criteria. But you can't do this upfront. You cannot start with a big deal like that without first proving the system, without first proving the model. And if we already have, and we are in the process of appointing somebody as Chief Compliance Officer. For now, he'll be honorary Chief Compliance Officer, but at some point he'll be an official Chief Compliance Officer. He's got extensive contacts in the insurance world. He's launched a number of companies, highly successful. And he will be negotiating this on behalf of, by the way, he's a member of the club. He's like you and me, right? He just happens to have an edge. He's the right person. He loves the concept, and he's going to take it to another level. He will be there at the launch on the 1st of April. Hopefully, he will get to say a few words from the stage, from the podium, and introduce himself. And hopefully, we'll be able to have some conclusion from his, right now, he's in air traveling to meet that insurance company. Okay, so we thought this through. You don't muck about with these things, because if you really truly want this to be a global phenomenon, something that can get to be as big as Airbnb, something that disrupts like Amazon did to Toys R Us. If you really want to go down that route, you have to get your basic building blocks in place. Without that, we're already losing. When we're not losing, because imagine there's one German and one Japanese manufacturer that would like to white label us and say, just sell our cars, please, because you know how you'll get the market moving. We are not into networking at all at that level. You can deal with people. You do that and sell our cars. We had, the CEO had to turn them down. All this happened before I actually joined, right? Within the first couple of weeks of launching in the United Kingdom, in a living room with a couple of $100 down payment. This is how it started. And they already started getting offers because somebody said, hey, you know what? These guys will be interested. We can't do that because we want to give our members choice. You should have the choice whether you want Italian, French, British, American, or whatever manufacturer you prefer, Korean or Japanese or whatever. It should always be your choice. But the fundamental point is this. The business model in and of itself is attracting corporate attention at the highest level involved in the auto industry, specifically insurance and specifically the manufacturers. The opinions of all the other in-between layers, we really couldn't care less because that's what we're trying to disrupt, right? So I hope this answers the insurance question. You will have to be covered. We will deal with it when we get to that point, but as it stands right now, it's not really a point of discussion to be worried about because our intentions, the heart is in the right place with the CEO.
Brilliant. Okay, thanks for that, Prem. Okay, so swiftly moving on, I'm going to ask the next question, Morel.
Yeah.
How are funds that are being paid, the £50 and the $75, how are they being secured? Okay, so as you know, these monies can't vanish anywhere. How is that being done?
Two things to say to that, and this time I'll keep it short because we don't want to keep people bored. Any company, especially for our USA friends, you will hopefully understand that if you're going to launch a new business and you need a company registered, Delaware is a good jurisdiction from which to do it, right? That's why Delaware companies are famous, right? Because they have relaxed laws and they're easygoing and all that. Any company that you are forming or registering becomes responsible within the year, within 12 months, to file paperwork and returns to show, well, what have you been doing with it? If you don't file any paperwork, you don't have any credibility. Your company may remain intact, but the company is a non-starter, right? So it could be just a closed shop and a company behind it means nothing. We, in the next few days, are going to file with the Companies House in the United Kingdom where we are officially registered. We're going to file assets on balance sheet with the Companies House in just the 7th month of our existence. We don't have to wait a year. And we want to do it before the financial year that ends in the United Kingdom, 5th of April. We want to file the paperwork beforehand. Now, all of a sudden, when that happens, so don't jump ahead, but when that happens, you have a document on the official registrar of companies under United Kingdom law. On their books, you will see the assets, and one of those assets is going to be the car that I have the privilege to drive for the next 2 years, right? So when it comes to safeguarding assets, it has got to be a more simple and logical solution, right? It has to be a bank account, which is exactly what we have. It has to be an escrow type of account, which means without the consent of more than one person, no money may leave it, and it may not leave unless it is for a specific purpose. So it's a ring-fenced United Kingdom bank account. However, we don't want to fall into the pitfalls of cross-currency valuations. So we don't want to have United States dollars coming into the United Kingdom, sitting here in United States dollars, and then when we have to repatriate, there's fees to be paid. So we have gone ahead and we have a payment gateway plus a bank account with Chase, ABA number or SWIFT code CHAUS 33. I remember that from my banking days. Okay. I think federal ABA number is 021000091. Chase is our US bank. Your dollars will be with Chase in a ring-fenced account in the name of the club. Now, if there was any intention for anybody to take the money and run, it was much easier to take the money and run rather than recall 3 cars, hand it over to 3 different people, and then load them on a trailer and do a Fast and Furious type steal. Okay, so the money is meant for cars. But one more thing that you need to know is this. In the United Kingdom, our version of the IRS is Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs, HMRC. HMRC don't voluntarily give you advice, okay? You're supposed to hire an accountant and do your business, and then they will tell you, was it right, was it wrong, are you getting penalized or not? In this specific case, HMRC reached back to us and said, hey guys, you know what you need to do? For the United Kingdom, this does not apply to the US or Europe or anywhere else, not the euro payment, not the dollar payment. For the United Kingdom payment, they're telling us your annual membership is a service to your members. So therefore, you have to pay tax on that. So what we suggest you do is the monthly payments every member pays in, you keep those monthly payments separate in 2 separate bank accounts. Now you have 2 ring-fenced escrow accounts. Effectively, they're escrow, right? They're not the typical property transaction escrow, but they are a type of escrow, okay? So what you now have is the tax payable amount going into one pot and the tax-free, non-tax payable amount, which are the monthly contributions, which is the lion's share of the cash flow that eventually ends up paying for the vehicles. Why is that going into a separate pot? Because it needs to be, from an accounting perspective, clean and separated. If the tax authority is telling you how to separate money and save tax, can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? They're saying, hey, this is a fantastic idea, because guess what? They too have motoring costs. No matter what you think of any 3-letter government organization, they're all people at the end of the day. They all have families and expenses, and they have the same stress and pressures. And when they see something like this and they can't pick faults at it, they reach out and reach back and they want to help us. So we have great comfort in knowing that not only will the assets be shown, and the proof is in the pudding, by the way. When those 3 cars and when the live stream starts happening during the launch, or even if it's a recorded thing, you can get to watch it later, how it happened, what the people who gave the speeches, you will hear my testimony as well. When you hear all of that, when you see it, and when you see cars there, you will know that all these members paid for those cars, right? And, you know, I always keep getting asked, what's the catch? Well, the catch is I will never own a car, and I don't want to. Good luck to you if you want to own a car. I don't want to own a car. I just want to drive a brand new car as cheaply as possible. That's my privilege. All I did is qualify for it because I got under the skin of this system. I understood it so that I could then help explain it to people. The moment you explain it correctly, you have almost 100% win rate because it's a club. Yeah, there's no commissions. There's no multiple layers of bonuses to be paid. There's no compensation plan. You don't have to, you know, recruit people. This is just like telling people, hey, have you seen Black Panther? Yes, I have seen Black Panther. So, okay, what you would think of it, no problem, whatever, you know, that discussion is over. But somebody says, no, I need to see it. Do you know which cinema is showing it at? That's the cinema. You end up referring people to a cinema. They end up spending, you know, God knows how much money on overpriced popcorn. And you've suddenly sent somebody to as a referral to somewhere, and you get nothing out of it, nothing at all. Here, it's a members club. I'll refer you to this club. I'll encourage you to be part of this movement and this revolution and this club. And I have nothing more to gain. I've already qualified for the car. None of your money, nobody's membership, including my own monthly membership, is no longer coming in my own favor anyway. It's going to somebody else's car now. Because one by one, we're ticking off people and paying each other's cars off. How simple is that? So who qualifies next? Is it John who qualifies next? Is it Mirel who qualifies next? Well, if Mirel qualifies next, guess what? The pot of money goes to Mirel. If John qualifies below Mirror, that pot of money goes to John. All you have to do is qualify, but the money is there. And where's the money from? It's from the members. That's why we're here. The moment John receives his car and Mirel receives her car, guess what? Now there are 3 people, all 3 of us paying monthly towards the next person's car. Beautiful system. And nobody can fault it because it's neither pyramidical, because it doesn't matter who came in at what time. You could join and qualify in 3 months. There are people who've joined 5 months ago and they're still not doing anything because they're not getting going with it, or not necessarily doing enough with it. But, some people may qualify sooner than later. It doesn't matter what time you join.
The thing is, that's something that I love about this, is that we are paying £50 a month or $75 a month. And yeah, some people are going to qualify within the 3-month qualification period. Some people are going to take 6 months. Some people are going to take 12 months, because we all have come in with different skill sets, different abilities. But the minute we do qualify for cars, we're still paying those £50 and $75 memberships, and that is then going to the other members that we've introduced. It's like Prem said, it's a beautiful, beautiful system. So, Mirel, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to come in, and if you can ask the next question. I think you've got them there on your. Yeah, you happy?
Yep, absolutely. Thank you, Prem. Prem, can you please explain the steps that are involved when you've qualified and then you get to actually choose your car? What are the steps involved?
All right. So it's very, very simple. I'll give you my own example, right? I joined towards the end of September. I got going fairly quickly. One thing I always had at the back of my mind is you need to balance your legs. You need to balance. So I knew that one of my legs was going to be weaker than the other 2. Yeah. I shouldn't say leg really. It's a pool. It literally is a pool of funding pool where the money comes and settles, right? So I started building. By middle of February, I had qualified for the 81 number, $24,000 or £20,000 budget. Then all I really had to do is wait a little longer. So I got a call to say, hey, you're very close to your numbers. Are you thinking about, I'm like, no, I'm going to give it some time. So they just backed off. It's very simple. We chat on WhatsApp. It's as basic as that. Whilst we are still small, it's possible. When we get bigger, there'll be better organization and more admin staff necessary. I'm very sure of that. So anyway, so I said, no, I want to wait. I want to have the upgraded version. So guess what? There were all of a sudden 80, actually I had more than 81 people. I needed 81. I had over 100 people, but they were not in the weak leg. They were all everywhere else but the weak leg. So I didn't technically qualify, even though I had more than 100 people. But guess what? This is what happens. 3.5 weeks after qualifying for the basic car, I qualified automatically for the bigger car. Why? Very simple. 80 plus people, if they get just one more, it fills your numbers. They're supposed to get 3 each, right? But one more. Some do more, some do less. So there's probability involved there. You can't have everything going equal. It's never going to work like that. It's never a perfect 3x3 matrix. It never happens like that. Okay. So in this case, it didn't matter because all I have is my 3, and then I have pools to look at. Now, some of my pools are 15 levels deep. I have crossed 300 people. So when people ask questions like, oh, what would you do if somebody drops out? I have 300 people. So if my original 81 dropped out, I still have enough in all of the pools. All you have to do is keep an eye that it's always balanced. That's all you have to do. And if some gets really weak, just pump in a little effort there. I'm sure you can do that. If you're in this networking space, if you even know what a Zoom call is, you probably know what this whole deal is all about. So the qualifying stages was very simple. I had completed 3 months. Well, I joined in September, so by December, I'd completed 3 months. So I'd qualified on the timeline, but not in numbers. Then by February, I'd qualified in numbers, but not in the balance. So a little later, I qualified in my 3-month minimum. I qualified. I had my very first three were my directs. And like I said, I wasn't wasting time. Once I understood this, I wasn't going to hold back, because the legal and compliance tick boxes were already checked. Then you go there like a roaring lion. Then you don't hold back at all, right? And especially if it's such a groundbreaking thing. I mean, like John said, too good to be true. And that's probably, in hindsight, we're thinking, well, we should have made it $150 per month. Why just 75? We're just giving, we could have charged twice as much per month and it'd still be okay. In fact, we'd have twice as much cash flow. But, the CEO, like I said, ex-church pastor, he really, and that's why the first car budget is actually fairly modest. Because the idea is to help large numbers of people, have large numbers of cars out there that are ultimately assets of the club, and help your ordinary mom and pop, struggling with car payments, rather than for a few people to be driving around in Lambos and, doing donuts with their rubber. So the next step was when on the verge of qualifying, I got a call from our office director, Maurice Brooks, and he said, "Hey, Prem, you're nearly there." I said, "Yes, very exciting." He's like, "Yeah, so have you thought of what you want?" I said, "I'll send you the spec by email." So I knew what I wanted, very specific. I knew what I wanted. So I told him, "Can you shop around and see if you can find something better than this? But if you don't, that's also fine. This is what I want. What I want is a station wagon with plenty of space in the back, because if you go camping or whatever, and I've got relatives visiting from foreign countries, their suitcases are bigger than some rooms in my house. So, you need the space at the back. So I needed a station wagon. We call it Estate. And I like a VW. So I chose a VW Passat Estate. And within that, I knew the trim I wanted. Why? Because my wife has already been used to that type of car. I wanted a trim that automatically included heated front seats, because in the winter it's nice to warm your backside a little bit, right? We weren't too fussed about leather, but heated seats come with leather. And this particular brand has, this particular trim has a panoramic sunroof in the front and a separate panoramic sunroof at the back. So we thought, yeah, kids will love that. We have 2 children. So, these were our simple criteria. I told him, I'm not fussed about the color. Find me the highest spec, the greatest luxury you can find. I don't care what color it is. And chances are, if you keep yourself flexible, So he came back with a Passat, and I was like, but that's not even a station wagon. He's like, oh, sorry. I completely overlooked that. Sorry, I'll get back to you. So another 24 hours later, he came back saying, Prem, you need to move on this fast. If you like this, you need to agree now, because VW National Dealership, with whom now we have a relationship because of this car. So we now have a relationship with Mercedes-Benz, with VW, and with Audi in the United Kingdom. The US remains to be seen how we develop that relationship, with which is the first choice of vehicle that Mr. Ali Mavani in Texas, I believe, he's the first person to qualify in the US. And we'll see how that goes. So anyway, he said, you need to move fast because this is a rare thing. And the car is actually, in dollar terms, was worth more than $40,000. $40,000 was the actual value of the car, with all the extras and the wheels and everything else. It has extra large 19-inch wheels rather than the standard 18-inch, and a few other bits and pieces like that. So I said, really, can you do that? He's like, I just need you to say yes by email. So I replied to him and say, as per specific spec provided, I agree, please go ahead and pay. That's the email I sent. So then I just left it, and I was waiting for like another 24 hours. I was waiting, like, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Did he get it? Did he not get it? And then I'm thinking, should I go for a Mitsubishi instead? So I'm very flexible because But he came back saying, Prem, we've done it, we've got it, because we told them we are paying cash through bank wire before lunchtime. They said, okay, well, this is the car. We said, well, we're not paying that much for the car. We need it to be discounted. So it was discounted to roughly 90% of my budget, because having worked out, me and my wife, the insurance for us for 2 years, plus the United Kingdom road tax for 2 years, that put together is under 10% of the budget. So a $40,000 car was literally acquired at 32,000 equivalent in sterling, in pounds. A 40,000 car was bought at 32, and the remaining 4,000 roughly will be used for the insurance and everything else. So that's how simple it was. They bought the car, they paid for it. It's their car. They as in the admin and the club, right? It's their car. All I said is, yeah, great. So can you confirm it to me? He's like, done. All right, fine. So now in this week, in the run up to actually collecting the keys at the handover ceremony on the 1st, on Easter Sunday, until then, the insurance needs to be taken care of. Now, the insurance is a bit of an issue because I will be paying for the insurance myself, right? And the club will reimburse me the difference. Why is that? Because we don't have a global group policy yet. The policy document has not yet been written. You cannot just take another leasing company's policy and white label it with our club on it, because our club has very different terms and conditions. Our club has very different, a unique ownership structure where all of us are effectively co-owners in the same car. So the policy document doesn't exist, but as soon as it is in place, and we'll find out on the 1st of April exactly what progress it has made, it'll be a very different scenario for everybody else. So pay for the insurance. The tax is literally the club's issue. And guess what? This was about 3 days ago. If you look at my Facebook profile, the picture at the back, whatever date I put up that picture, that's the date they confirm the number plate. So in the UK, when the car is officially purchased, a number plate is issued, and that's your registration mark at the back. And I took that, put it onto a picture of the same Atlantic blue color estate, and I've put it on my Facebook profile. You can check it out anytime. That's literally the registration number. So in a week's time or so, when people try to find that vehicle using the vehicle registry system, online system in the United Kingdom, they will be automatically able to say, indeed, that car belongs to the club. I'm just the registered keeper and the person insured to drive it. That's how simple it is, guys.
Brilliant.
There's nothing more to it.
And it's a very nice car. I look forward to seeing it on Sunday, Prem.
Yeah, I love it. It's a better spec than we would normally pay, because the more you spec up, you end up forking out more. And if you do a lease or any kind of PCPH, a hire purchase finance, it just adds to your monthly outgoing.
Yeah.
Right now, I'm just thrilled to drive it for literally a tenth of what I would normally pay using a finance.
A car of that value. I mean, here in the UK, what was it valued at? What was it on the forecourt for here in the UK in pounds?
On the forecourt, the list price is 32,000, and including the specs and everything is £35,000.
So a £35,000 car, guys. Okay, that PCC has been able to purchase, including 2 years of insurance and 2 years tax, all for within the £30,000 budget. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. That opens up the field an awful lot. And I was out locally in my local garages a couple of weekends ago, looking around, getting a feel, because I have the vision and I know that I'm going to get there. And so I was sitting in the new cars in the dealerships, but I wasn't necessarily looking for a £20,000 or £30,000 vehicle. I was looking at the 34, maybe the £35,000 vehicles, So very excited. We're going to go on to the next question now.
Really quickly, John, quickly. That we can get a discount is not a given, because there are a few factors at play here. The car that was finally achieved was done because in the UK, it's the end of the financial year and they need to shift numbers. So they play games with you too, right? So we told them, well, we'll have it at a discount or not at all. And if you play hardball, there's some possibility. But that is not for me to do. That's for the admin and the club to do.
Yeah.
Now, if you use a commonly available vehicle from all over the place, I don't know, a Ford is very popular in the United Kingdom. If you go for a Ford vehicle, there's plenty of choice available. You may not get the best discount because they're already deeply discounted. right? If you go for something rare and unique, we may struggle to get a discount there because it's rare and unique. So it all depends on a number of factors, but there's no guarantee that you will necessarily get a discount. Just put up your choices and admin will get back to you.
See how it pans out. Yeah, exactly. We have had a little question in the chat. We've got my buddy Chris Rathburn out in Ohio. He asked, if your original pool continues to grow well over 81 or 125, will you ever be able to upgrade even more from that pool instead of starting a second pool?
No, simple answer is no, because then we are compounding a problem. The moment you qualify for a car, your purpose for that pool is served. That position, all you have to do is now just keep maintaining it, so that 2 years down the line, there'll be enough cash flow in the system.
Cool.
If any more kept coming towards you, there won't be enough to pay the next person.
For everyone else.
Yeah.
Cool. Morel, do you want to take the next question?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Prem. One of the questions that came up was, how close are we to having cars rewarded in the USA? Well, you've already touched on that. Ali's our first qualified member. And did he qualified for the $36,000 package, didn't he?
Yes, and just to quickly touch, he is several levels down from the second person who qualified, which is Pastor Devon McKenzie in Birmingham, UK. He's in his team, but straight down, many levels down, this guy just goes ahead and boom, he qualifies, right? So there's actually a lot of people that haven't yet qualified because they haven't built as fast as him. But Ali Mavani is one of the top leaders in the US for this specific business model. And he qualified for the highest one. But the idea is that although he qualified, we don't really want to launch just one car in the US. So he's happy to wait a little longer for some other people in the US to catch up. If you're in the US, you get going now, you could be on that stage with Ali and collect your car in the next couple of months or so. I hope to fly over because, let's face it, it's inevitable that I will be at least some kind of a side character, for the company to project, saying, look at him. And, so I would be in a position to be the brand ambassador. And I would love to come to the US. I would love to meet a lot of people there, wherever the launch takes place. But chances are it'll be in Texas. We're growing massively in Texas mainly. And we also have greatest comfort that the local laws in Texas are the best for this kind of business model. They're great in many other states, by the way. There's just a few states that are slightly tricky. But we'll cover that, get to that, because we've got a team of lawyers that are just waiting for a little bit of a retainer to basically take care of that so we can focus on the business. We don't want to be engaging with any more authorities in any way. We've done our due diligence, we've done our checks, and the legal team will take care of everything facing, including public relations, including silencing nonsense talkers whether in social media or generally in media. They will take care of that. And this is a highly placed, very powerful company we're dealing with. So when they take care of that, when they take over, we just focus on business. I'd love to be there at the handover of the first 3 or 4 cars in the US.
Brilliant. So if you want to just move on to that final question, Morel, that we've got in from the guys earlier.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of interest from people in Canada, and they're eager to know, when can they sign up?
Okay, so we have confirmation from the Canadian lawyers. Now, they're based in Canada. We have confirmation from them that this is a home run in all of the Canadian provinces, including Quebec, which is the tricky one. For most other type of direct sales type of things, but we are not multi-level, so we are an absolute home run. The thing is, we needed to prove the concept here in the United Kingdom first, right? You have to at least be established in your own home country. We opened up the US, albeit a little reluctantly, but it is opened up in US once we got, I wouldn't call it a legal opinion, because a written legal opinion costs thousands of dollars, as you can appreciate. But we have a go-ahead from our legal team to say US is absolutely clear, because this is a brand new concept. It's actually an ancient concept that was forgotten for many centuries, but it is now doing a comeback, whether you look at Kickstarter or any other crowdfunding sites, and it's very, very popular. It's actually very popular with millennials, because they're like, yeah, this is funky, man. I don't have money. I don't want to ask mom and dad because they're broke anyway. So let's go crowdfund our project, you know? So it's actually very, very useful for the younger generation. But Canada is, there's a Canadian dollar issue of adding a fourth currency right now. Although we can do it, no problem. We need to have, it would be ideal actually to have the insurance, the global insurance policy coverage before we can do that. That may still be a month or so away, or maybe 2 months away. We don't know. But the idea is that the US launch will inevitably come first, and then it's open season for Canada. And Canada is the fourth country, and it is confirmed that Canada is the next one we'll be entering. But as soon as we have a global policy, we can actually, in theory, enter a whole number of countries, including Mexico.
So just a matter of time, guys.
Yeah.
Okay. I know that we've got a lot of Canadians in our chat boxes that are all chomping at the bit to get started. So yeah, it's going to be just a matter of time, like Prem said, till we get that insurance policy in place, and that will open us up globally, effectively, right? You know, so who knows where it will go from there.
But we're not going to go global, because this is the thing, right? You need a lot of money to take care of the lawyers who are necessary to take care of all the necessary government agencies, whether it is the tax authorities, whether it's the regulatory authorities, whether it's the Federal Trade Commission. So you need lawyers to deal with that. You need people who know the wording and the letters and everything else to actually deal with that correctly. So either we divert the funds to that, and if we did that here in the home country, we become illegal. If we take member money and use it for anything other than the car package, we get shut down in the home country. So where do you want the budget to go? Should the budget go in satisfying all those conditions, or should it go in proving the concept, so that having proved it, we now have greater momentum? And remember, there's an annual fee being paid in a separate pot. That annual fee is actually a reserve fund that can be used for a number of things. But over and above this, we have one of the United States' greatest cryptocurrency expert named Max Garza III. If you haven't heard any of his Zoom or Hangouts, please do. He's going to be here at the launch. He's going to talk about the cryptocurrency he'll be launching, and the reason that specific cryptocurrency is different from all others. Look, I'm from a cryptocurrency business, right? This is what I do as my main bread and butter. So I know what he's talking about, and I can tell you, I can relate to you in simple terms. Very, 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 very few cryptocurrencies are asset-backed. They're technology ideas, and they get pumped a lot because of fear of missing out, most of the cases, and people think, this will be the next big thing, so let's buy. But very few are backed by assets. He is so excited to launch a cryptocurrency with us, for us, and that will be the initial fundraiser. Now what happens is we don't have to touch member contributions set aside for the cause, and yet we're able to raise capital from the open market, and this now gives access to people. Let's say, for example, you knew somebody in Mongolia. We may never be in Mongolia, but if they wanted to participate in the club structure or the growth of the club, they can buy cryptocurrency in Mongolia, right? So they may not get to drive a car, but they can own the cryptocurrency. So this is not going to be an initial coin offering. That's a very big mistake a lot of people make all the time. It's not an ICO. ICO is wherein you're inviting people to invest and then you suddenly launch at some point. No, this is going to be a pre-sale, okay, which is very, very different. This is going to be for members, okay? This is not yet open for the rest of the public. The rest of the public comes when the coin eventually gets listed on an exchange, and at an exchange stage, that's when the rest of the market has direct access to it, and they'll swap their Bitcoin for, for this coin, and we get to raise a lot of capital in the market. So we have a few other capital raising ideas, but the idea is that eventually legally, and I can tell you this very comfortably, we have been advised to change our structure just a little bit and move over into becoming a limited liability partnership, which means you all become limited liability partners in the business. So then there is no more a discussion about, nobody can then tell us you're a Ponzi scheme. What kind of LLP is a Ponzi scheme, right? It's partners and everybody owns something in it, right? So we're going to change that structure very soon. We just need to get over a few legal issues that, or legal advice. We need to pay them and all that. And, it takes time, and you have to meet with people. There's hours of discussions. And what do you do? I mean, I'm so grateful that there are other people taking care of that, because if I had to do it, I don't think I could qualify and take care of all these meetings and all these other things that are happening in the background, right? So I'm really grateful for the people taking that pressure off me so I could go ahead and build the car. So now I get to be the poster boy, and yet they're the ones that have secured the system and put it in its right foundation and good footing. So we are in that place where if we raise any amount of capital through a coin offering at some point, not an offering, a pre-sale at some point in the near future, we will then be able to speed up the process. Because remember, even the most complicated legal documents, if you pay, they will be taken care of. So, if we can then speed up the policy, then Canada will be sooner rather than later. But we don't know. And we appreciate that, a lot of people are very anxious to get on board, but it is coming. So what you want to do maybe is start networking already. Nothing stopping you. You just don't have the signups. But if it is a true relationship-based and a person-to-person network, then you will be securing your people already. You will be faster than anyone else to qualify, because you will be building a team without even having a link.
Absolutely. So start working now, folks. If you're in Canada, start building those relationships, start sharing the concept, understanding the concept, and like Prem said, as we roll out progressively throughout the rest of the countries that we've got on target to launch into, I mean, it's going to be a phenomenal journey. Now, we've just hit about an hour on this call. So, Morel, have you got any other questions? I know we've gone through the questions we had on the list. Do you feel we covered the Ponzi question effectively, Prem? Would you feel we've covered that effectively?
Maybe not, but I'm happy to touch on that.
Ponzi, I want to bring this in because, I mean, I have had this quite a few times myself from people that I know, like, and trust within our online world. Okay. So, yeah, if you could sort of clarify what is a Ponzi and what makes us not a Ponzi, that would be much appreciated.
There are a lot of people, especially in the US, who know direct selling rules and multi-level marketing laws intimately, because they've been doing this business of multi-level marketing for a number of years. So they clearly know what they're talking about. And when they say it's a Ponzi, it's not something to be taken lightly. On the other hand, because they are multi-level marketing, they don't understand crowdfunding. And that's our baby. This is something different. This is something totally, completely, wholly different. So when people say, well, if you're paying in monthly, what am I getting for it? Guess what? Mirel has been paying in, John has been paying in monthly. I don't know whether John owns a foot pedal or a wing mirror, but what's the point in separating that from the vehicle and handing it back to John just to justify what his monthly payment has been doing? On the other hand, it's multi-level marketing mindset that actually comes up with, like, what about the Federal Trade Commission, FTC, etc. Well, look, I'll tell you one thing. 4 friends go to Reno and open a new gambling club. Do you think you'll be registering with the FTC when you start a poker club? Or even if you open up the club to a maximum of 10,000 members, do you think you're going to register for the FTC for that? That's not the first thought. But if FTC registration is necessary, we know from the CEO's own mouth, we want to be regulated. But the regulators are telling us, go away. You are not the business model that we normally deal with. So the securities law doesn't apply. SEC has no concerns with this because we are not issuing a security. We are not issuing any kind of paper that is supposed to carry value just because of what's written on it. So it's not a securities-based transaction at all. We have no loans, no credit, no borrowing involved. So there is no banking regulation necessary either. So FINRA and things like that are out. Now, as regards the business model itself, it's the same applies to Amazon. When they started selling books, from a small garage or something, trying to sell books online, when Jeff Bezos got started, registering with FTC wasn't the first of his priorities. Getting cash flow was his first priority, and then eventually he got registered. And all legitimate businesses will have to get registered correctly and properly in the right places. And this is why we still have this lag of the legal and the insurance side coming. Because see, the insurance policy will be structured on the back of the insurance company being comfortable that the regulators here in the United Kingdom are on board with it. We are actually in conversation, an open, friendly, warm conversation with the United Kingdom regulator, the Financial Conduct Authority, not because of the cars, and not even because we are collecting money from people, but because of the legal structure of the company. Is it a club, is it a company, or is it a limited liability partnership? And the regulator are telling us, whatever happens, we will tell you if there is something we don't like, and we'll give you enough time to make the necessary changes. What more do you want? And once you get regulated in one country, guess what? The regulators in other countries are like, oh, you're regulated over there, are you? Okay, yeah, well, we can give you regulation. It becomes something called passporting. In banking speak, we call it passporting, or grandfathering is if you're qualified in one jurisdiction and you move to another jurisdiction, you're grandfathered into the other jurisdiction as being qualified. So this happens internationally, especially in the Western world, and the United Kingdom, US laws are not that drastically different. So, at least we don't speak Chinese. Yeah. So this is where we have a great deal of comfort. Now, when it comes to Ponzi accusation, it normally comes from a multi-level marketing mindset because they say there is no product. Well, there isn't a product. It's a club. And the product is a car of your choice. So we cannot specifically tell you at this point what your car is going to be because you haven't qualified yet. As soon as you qualify, yes. Now, another objection that comes up regarding that is you only get a car if you qualify, and in the meantime, you're taking money from people, right? Well, that's the whole point. If you're joining anything, if you're joining a club with the knowledge and the intention, or if you join a gym, knowing that you're never going to use that rowing machine or the treadmill or any of the facilities, well, then why did you join? So to qualify is the objective of each member. If you join something and then you say, well, I haven't done anything to meet my objectives. No, it's not that. Then perhaps you should stick to the normal standard way of financing cars. And that's a fact, because we are actually a club of people that wants to, John, final call for any important or pressing question, folks. Cool. Guys, if you, anything else, but hopefully I've clarified that. The Ponzi objection comes from there. When we file papers with the company's registrar and prove actual assets in the system, how can it be a Ponzi? A Ponzi is something where people get rewarded. I qualified for a car. I'm never going to see a penny more from the 300 plus people in my team now. I'm not. Why would I? Because everybody's money, including my own, is going for the next person, and then the next person, and the next person. We are paying for each other's cars. So many people paid for or the car I qualified for, and it isn't mine, it's everybody else's. So as long as the club retains the cars, nobody can call us a Ponzi. If I got to own the car and tomorrow I go and sell it in the market and take the cash, then it becomes cash gifting and totally illegal. A number of similar models have been tried by different companies, a few in the US, few in the UK. They had fatal flaws built into the system. We have dealt with all of those flaws. One of the flaws is the company qualifying members were supposed to lease a car. The company was supposed to lease the car and then release the car to the qualifying member. And the leasing companies don't like that. They don't agree with that. They're like, no, hang on a minute. You are our liability, so why are you passing our liability on to someone else? So that model collapsed, and they were called prestige cars in the United Kingdom. There's another model, Dex car in Germany. There's another model, 5-star that was in the US. It got shut down because they were structured incorrectly. Crowdfunding cannot be stopped because no such laws exist. And if laws need to be made or amended, then we are more than happy to do whatever is necessary to get this legalized. Here in the United Kingdom, we are getting offers from one of the largest car part suppliers in the United Kingdom. They're saying, and it's a superstore that sells everything motoring related. It's a large superstore. I can't give you too much information, but they're offering us, they're like, all right, we'll give 40% discount to all your members. We're getting offers coming. So these are member benefits. We've got roadside assistance, breakdown coverage, all these different companies all of a sudden on their alert saying, okay, well, if they're going to be driving and if they're going to have a large number of members, we would like to offer their members these bespoke treats and benefits. And some kind of loyalty, rewards, bonuses, there's all manner of things that are possible. We hope to see a insurance in our own label. So the group insurance we're getting, if we can just rename it with our own name on it, because the large insurer will not mind. If we can have that, we practically own our own insurance company, right? Then you have everything cheap as chips anyway. You need 30 cars to be on the road to apply for a multi-brand online dealership license. Now we start getting cars at factory cost, never mind negotiating with the salesmen or directors or whatever. So there's a whole lot of possibilities here, and we have every intention to serve the membership. And if the membership says we'd like a speedboat and we'd like a Harley or we'd like this and that and the other, well, go for it. I mean, I know John could do with a Harley because the length of his legs will only fit a Harley. He won't fit on a Japanese bike. I'm sure of that. I mean, he sat in a Mazda Miata the other day, and his head was sticking out of the roof. So, but guys, all issues and concerns have correct and appropriate responses and answers, and we are not shy to face them. And hopefully another time, sometime soon, our CEO will be glad to do the same thing and tell you more or less the same thing, if necessary. Right.
Brilliant. Well, Prem, thank you very much for jumping on tonight. And like Prem said, we are just waiting on the CEO to do a similar thing. But right now, we are just days away from launch. So he's obviously a very busy guy right now. So, Morel, thumbs up. Thanks for helping out tonight. Folks that are on here live, thank you for jumping in and for the questions that were asked. And more importantly, Prem, thank you very much for jumping on and sharing your knowledge, your wisdom. Really appreciate you jumping on, guys. So with that being said, we're going to wrap this up. Hope it's been of great use to you. If you have any further questions, please take them back to the person that you're speaking to about PCC with, and we can get these questions answered, okay? With that being said, thanks for checking this out, and we hope to see you real soon inside Privileged Car Club. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye.